Hello and welcome back to Chatbot with me, Josh from Robot Republic. Joining me today, we have two very special guests because we have both Miguel and Ricardo from One Simple Game, who are developing a really cool, fun roguelike. Introduce yourselves, guys.
You go first, Miguel.
Oh, thank you, sir. Okay, so I am Miguel. I am how can I call it? Technical animator and Unity developer at One Simple Game.
And the main programmer of I'm Not Jelly.
Oh, right. Currently, I am like the main main programmer for the prototype of the game, the current documentation as well. So that's it. Nice to meet you guys.
And I'm Ricardo, better known as Kubo, and I'm the technical artist at One Simple Game. I also do a bit of programming here and there, but my main job is doing all the visual effects, particles, and all that rendering stuff, rendering magic on projects. And yeah, that includes I'm Not Jelly.
Oh, brilliant. And it's so lovely to have both of you here on the show. Honestly, really excited about this game because we're going to be talking about I'm Not Jelly, which is in the middle of a big Kickstarter kind of boost at the moment. And it is when I was playing it through, it was a completely different take on what a lot of people assume to be roguelikes nowadays, because roguelikes have gone into this realm of being very serious and angry and dark and foreboding and moody and a bit Batman-y. I love Batman. I love Batman, but they've all become a little bit Batman-y. They're all a bit broody and whatnot. So can you tell us a bit about kind of the concepts behind I'm Not Jelly? Because it's kind of a completely different take on what a lot of people will assume a roguelike is.
Well, I don't know. The first concept of the game started on a global game jam, and it was a very different game then. And we mainly took the art direction of that initial concept and evolved it into what is I'm Not Jelly today. We have very different approaches to what sort of game should we make with this concept art, and we ended up with the idea of a roguelite. And yeah, it took off really well. The main mechanics, the initial movement and stuff, it was prototyped really quickly, and it validated this idea for us, because the main purpose of this prototype is to validate the fun, the gameplay, that it's enjoyable to play. And yeah, and it seems like we've struck something nice there in that regard.
Excellent. I mean, to be fair, just from the kind of my playthrough of the prototype and stuff, I mean, the kind of first word that I kind of came to mind when I was playing it was just fun. It was upbeat. It had I loved the kind of the world building and stuff. We'll come on to kind of like the world building and stuff in a minute, but I genuinely did love the kind of concepts behind the world building and everything else, and it came from a game jam, which is just brilliant. Yeah, that's awesome. So on the subject, kind of like, obviously the idea started at a game jam, and it's evolved and developed from there. Kind of with the world building and stuff, can you kind of where did that inspiration come from? Because it is a really original idea. Kind of the only thing that I could kind of even remotely like in the kind of world building too was Splatoon on Nintendo, because it's just completely different and really creative and really fun. So kind of where did that come from?
You want to tackle that, Miguel?
Well, I was not there for the time the first spark of the idea came from, but I can remember some of the things were being discussed when the project was being like retaken and remangled. Oh no! And so I guess like everyone wanted to make something funny, something that would make us like feel like enjoy and laugh at, something that would have a lot of gags, a lot of jokes, a lot of visually funny things, like things exploding and things smearing on the walls and things like this kind of stuff, like very physical feeling stuff. And on the other side, we wanted to make an action game, something that everyone in the studio really enjoys. And one of the main inspirations for the topic of the humor was, I think, Invader Sim.
Yep.
Like, oh,
Yeah.
do you remember that show? Oh, it was so
Love that
crazy,
show.
right?
Oh
so
my God,
which
that's
is
amazing.
that was part of the idea. And for the gameplay, everyone involved in the project is a fan of Super Giant games. So we were all imbued with Hades at the moment. So we said, well, we can try a roguelike. We just need like an interesting core mechanic, something that can make it like special for the project. But but we can try this. And so that's where we went.
Oh, brilliant. And let's be serious now. Hades is, wow. Hades is
Yes.
really. We're here to talk. We're talking
It's
about Untitled.
it's a culmination of everything Supergiant did for their past games, their past projects.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And I understandably looking at Hades and being like, let's take this really amazing, this really different idea, and let's make it a roguelike. Is genius, if I'm honest. Absolutely.
There's actually like a story behind some of the things that were happening, because back when we were first discussing how to make the game, like Hades was this like amazing game we were all playing, but like all of the award season had not happened yet. So we began developing the first ideas, and then suddenly Hades began to win everything everywhere with everyone, and we're like, oh, well, the quality bar has been raised, guys.
Yeah.
we need to we need to get serious about some of the aspects. And so one of the game designer, what's the name? Roman, the game designer, he really pressured us into making choices to showcase on the prototype, which is, what do we really want to focus on? Do we really want to focus on world building? Do we want to focus on showcasing the meta game? Or should we focus our efforts on the core loop experience, the immediate gameplay feel? And that was the ultimate choice. Like, we will polish the most we can with just one character, with just one world, but make the game feel as close to the thing we want as we can right now. And that was the focus on the project, and that's what we hope we showed in the prototype.
I mean, absolutely. I mean, kind of when I was playing it through, it was just the thing that struck me at the start was how colorful and how bright and how vibrant it was. At that point, I was like, oh, this is cool. This is really cool. It's really bright. It's really vibrant. And then I kind of started, I was kind of reading some of the stuff that came up on the screen and some of the information you're given, and the little hub world and everything. And I was like, oh, so much work has gone into this. And like the world building is really, really cool. And yeah, it's just brilliant. I mean, to be fair, and obviously most people know what a roguelike is, so we don't need to sit here and explain what a roguelike is. But that core gameplay loop to be in such a dynamic and upbeat manner is something that kind of I haven't seen for quite a long time. I kind of think in terms of roguelites and stuff, kind of get roguelikes that have this really upbeat kind of feel to them is something it hasn't been seen. I mean, the only thing that kind of springs to mind is The Binding of Isaac, and that was what, 10 years ago now? And that kind of had a very macabre sense of humor to it, a really kind of dark, gritty sense of humor. But to actually then for you guys to come along and say, well, we're just going to make something that is upbeat, fun, and jokey is brilliant. And I need to ask where the idea of jellyfish and plants came from, because that was a laugh out loud moment.
I don't exactly recall why, but one of the main reasons that we chose the jelly and the plant is because we wanted to have a lot of gore, guts and everything exploding, but we can't get away with that with humanoids and realistic people, realistic depictions of life, because we will get censored immediately. So we can do slapstick humor and all that kind of zany stuff with this concept.
That's brilliant.
Yeah, that's a big factor on it. And we went basically all in with the humor and tone for the project. I remember when we were prototyping and the death screen, the first sketch of the death screen, and it had the Lemao tag on it, and we all laughed at it, and we said we need to keep that. It has to stay on the on the final release of that screen. And that's why on the death screen there's the Lemao pointing at the jelly.
And it's funny because that edition was like just a gag that the artist, the main artist, decided to put there. Like he was kind of joking. He was kind of mocking us or mocking the team. And we said, you know what? This is the tone we're looking for. Yes.
Brilliant. I like that. Just a bit of inter-office joking around, and it gets put in the game as just a long-standing joke. Amazing. And I love the fact as well that you guys are like, this is the tone we want in the game, therefore it's staying in.
You got it.
Oh, that's brilliant. What I was going to come on to next is kind of like more of the kind of like the nitty-gritty of the game and the kind of the animations and the kind of stylistic decisions around kind of some of the kind of creature creations and creature movements and stuff, because it is obviously, it's such an original idea to kind of have these amorphous jellyfish monsters that you're controlling and throwing around a battlefield, beating the living, ever-loving chlorophyll out of plants. Kind of obviously really creative minds over at One Simple Games, like mind-blowingly creative. Kind of when you were coming up with kind of some of the kind of ideas for some of the plant creatures and some of the jellyfish creatures, kind of did you kind of just all go off into separate teams? Was it a sitting around and kind of round tabling ideas and stuff? Kind of how did you decide on some of these? Because the designs for the portion of the game that I played were just brilliant, really clever.
It's a little bit of everything, because there's a round table with everyone pitching their ideas, but also we have game design saying, okay, I need enemies that perform these actions to force or to guide the player into certain decisions. And well, that influences the enemy types. And also we have our artists doing just concept art of everything they can imagine, and basing on what we have proposed and what game design needs and the concepts that art makes, we can pick and choose, mix and match with all those ideas, and then we have some result with that. And as for the jellies, the game designer basically wants to have some preset types of gameplay, because right now we have the fairly standard Blua, the blue jelly that we control, and there's on the lobby the red guy called Ruga and the yellow guy called Flava, and they are different types of gameplay that we hope to include on future releases. And yeah, we have this vision that we need to have different gameplays, different experiences for different types of players.
Yeah, I don't know. I remember the process when the artists were giving the prompt, like enemies should be vegetables, and they just went crazy with it. I remember there was the drone, the main, like the lettuce guy. Just they were, what if this thing like comes out and takes possession of your head like a Metroid from like a Metroid. And when there was another guy that it's like an ostrich, but it's an onion, and it sinks ahead and it pops out somewhere else. And so there were a lot of proposals for for enemies. Like the artist just went insane with saying, "Oh, let's put this and let's put that," and I want a worm that spits, I don't know, like olive oil or something. I don't know, but ultimately it's a choice made by the game design, which is, well, what of this can we pick right now, and what of this can we make as a fitting piece of the whole idea. So, but a lot of crazy stuff has been going on, guys.
Yeah, and for prototype purposes, more than we want this, is we need this right now for the feeling of the prototype. And we have a lots and lots of ideas in the backlog, and just waiting for them to implement it.
I was going to say the backlog must be absolutely insane. I mean, coming back to kind of like the different jellies. Obviously, you know, Bluer, when I was playing it through, correct me if I'm wrong, he struck me as your kind of quick attack, fast moving character. When I was looking at the other two, I would assume, based on the looks of them, that Ruger is going to be your kind of like big, slightly slower, big, stompy, smashy. And then is Flava going to be a range attack, or are they going to be just like super fast, like a tornado?
No, range attack, you got it.
Range attack, brilliant. I did think, I was looking at them, I was just kind of like, that one strikes me as a range attack when they got these like big gangly arms that are just kind of like lobbing stuff and prevent. Oh, cool. That brings me on to the next piece, and it was a question I wanted to ask you guys because I was curious about it. Because obviously it's a roguelike, and therefore with that kind of, you know, the two words that a lot of people kind of nowadays kind of look at and go, oh yes, no, that's a high standard of gaming, and some people look at and go, oh god, not again. When you were obviously programming in the levels and stuff, is it procedurally generated, or is it more linear in structure?
Not really procedurally generated. Oh, well, it has a little bit of A and a little bit of B, because it's really hard to really design the proper experience for a level if it's procedurally generated. You have to have some kind of god-like algorithm to make sure everything works. So right now we're focused on designing the rooms, each room to serve a specific purpose, and then we put them into a pool, and each mission picks the rooms at random, and well, random with a specific, you know, kind of, okay, these rooms could be first, these rooms could be second, these rooms could be third, and that's our angle, that's our aim.
Right, like this is yes, this is an issue that was discussed like early in the development process, right after we saw the success that Hades was having with the community, which was, well, what are we going to focus on really? And we know we want to make some procedural processes within the game. Like we want to have an algorithm that will like generate different kinds of missions within a world, and probably populate some levels with random material to keep the game fresh. But right now the choice was, well, we can focus on developing that, we can focus on developing the randomizing algorithms, or we can focus on game feel. So this was mostly a budget versus purpose issue. What do we want to show right now? What is our strong card? And we thought, well, really, if we show many different levels and try to shuffle them randomly with a simple random algorithm, we can fake the experience of the rogue of the procedural, and we can focus on the gameplay. And that's ultimately the choice that was made.
Brilliant. And obviously, you know, kind of for a prototype and stuff, having that the gameplay mechanics and the core gameplay loop kind of worked out is obviously really important, because obviously it then allows, you know, players and people that are kind of demo testing and stuff to actually get a proper feel for what the game is like, which, by the way, is really cool. I've said it before and I'll say it again, it is a really cool game and a really fun concept. And the next thing I want to talk about was the headquarters, because obviously when you're first kind of dropped into the game, you're dropped into Jelly HQ, if you will, which is obviously your kind of level hub. It's where you go back to frequently throughout the game and stuff. And obviously, you guys are still in the development process. You've still got loads of stuff to kind of do on the game and stuff. Is that area going to be expanded at all? Because obviously, I noticed you've got like this really cool area where you can look at the different veggies and the plants that you've kind of been battling, and there are models of them kind of like that pop up and stuff, which was really cool. I like that. And a different way of kind of displaying enemies, because obviously some games are just like, and here is your book with pages. You were like, no, here are some holograms.
Still images.
Yes, here are some holograms, still images. I was like, oh, I like this. Kind of like, is that going to kind of expand the stuff as we go through the game? Kind of like as players kind of like eventually, when we get there, progress through the game, is that going to be an area that kind of expands and players can kind of interact with and whatnot? Or is it going to be a bit more of a kind of just, it will stay more or less the same? We'll just have more really cool, horrible veggie characters that you've beaten the ever-loving goo out of?
No, I think there's plans to expand the headquarters, but it wasn't really vital for the prototype.
Yep.
It has just enough amount of information that needs to be on the prototype. But yeah, we plan to add more rooms to the headquarters, more interactions on the headquarters, because right now we have a fairly simple progression story on the background on the headquarters. Every time you return, there's new stuff happening, even if it's pretty much unnoticed by the player. But that kind of stuff, that kind of things that make the headquarters keep the feeling fresh, we plan to implement that.
I think it's going to be completely redesigned, like to keep some of to keep the core idea. Like we want the trophy room and the information, the collectibles room. We need the character selection stage. We need the battle selection stage. Like we know the parts that are required and that they were like included in the prototype, but it's like it's not big enough.
Yeah.
It's going to need a complete revamp. But for that, we will need first the design guidelines for the final project.
Oh, brilliant! I'm really excited for this to come out. I'm going to be honest. It was just
Thanks, sir.
So fun. Next thing I want to talk about as well is obviously one of the kind of things that is kind of like some people know, some people don't. When it comes to like kind of building a roguelike game, is how much of a challenge it is to get all of this stuff, kind of all of the assets programmed and animated and stuff. Kind of how have you as a team kind of been working on, as you've been kind of developing it, that kind of the programming and the more kind of like the technical mathsy codey basedy stuff? Because obviously, I mean, it's done completely in Unity according to my notes, which is obviously I've used Unity. It's a nice engine to use, and C# is slightly less of a pain than C++. Kind of like, whilst you've been kind of programming it, because there's so much in this prototype, like so much. Whilst you've kind of been developing it and stuff, kind of coding it and everything, has there been any kind of like major kind of like bugs that you've kind of had to look at and go, oh no, we need to remove that before that goes live? Or is there been any bugs where you've kind of just gone, if anyone finds that, it will be really funny?
Well,
you want to talk about that, Miguel?
The first thing I was thinking about was the choice of diverging branches in the project. Like the very first thing we did, some groundwork on the project, was to create like the prefab references, how to make like little boxes that we could add to the scenes or to the levels that could be managed on the side by several people on the project and not affect the final result and not step on each other's shoes while working together. So that's like that was like the first part. But then there was like this very ambitious idea from Mr. Kubo here, like Kubo, the lead artist, Silvacho, which was we want to add to the prototype an approximation to what we want as the final look of the game. And some of those effects were not present or were not easily implemented at the moment. So should we work on that, or should we continue prototyping? And we said, why not both? And so we made two diverging branches of the project. One was completely devoted to prototyping. The other one was completely devoted to the game, to look dev.
To the visuals, yeah.
And one of the issues that we faced a couple of weeks ago was, all right, we're ready to launch, so we need to merge these branches. And a lot of stuff exploded there. So there was a couple of weeks we're very hard on oh, this is collapsing with this, and you're overwriting my changes. And so it was a little mess, but it was sorted out, and we're quite happy with this. And then there are the bugs, and the bugs are an issue. One of the things we thought would make our lives easier at the beginning was, well, why don't we use some ready-made out-of-the-box solutions for to help us in speeding up the process. And oh, well, here's a character controller, right? Bloop, let's bring it in. And here is an input manager, bloop, and here is something else, and bloop, and suddenly some of these things do not match together, or some of these things have unexpected results when you begin to add mechanics on top of them. So one of the core problems we still have, you may face it if you play the prototype, is that sometimes the main player or some of the enemies might suddenly disappear, go through the ground and explode underneath. And that's an issue we have with the character controller. And this is something that the solution will be, we will make our custom character controller to manage these specific issues. But currently, it's we can just make it the least possible, the least frequent as we can.
Yep. I mean, ultimately, when I was going through it, I didn't come across any kind of major character sinking through the ground bugs and stuff. If I do, I'll let you know.
Reported the big.
But no, that's really, really helpful, because obviously, it is a game of this scale is kind of I can imagine it's been quite an undertaking, kind of in terms of organizing teams of people and getting everything kind of sorted and stuff. And I mean, it's definitely, from what I've seen, been well worth the effort, because the game is absolutely brilliant. I think the next thing on my list of notes, because I do prepare for these interviews despite what people occasionally think, is to kind of talk about the animations of the jellies themselves, and more specifically Bluer, your kind of the little jelly that you kind of spend all of the prototype running around as, because the animations are so fluid. I mean, really, really good animations on Bluer when I was running around, just kind of the movement and the kind of the idle animations where the little flail thing is just kind of still jingling around and stuff is really, really cool. How much time have the kind of animation team spent trying to kind of really focus and perfect the kind of the animations of the characters in this game?
You want to say the truth?
Oh, we'll go with the truth. Unless you want to fluff it up.
Well, obviously, a lot of the main part of Blue Anime, the main part of everything is to have a solid base for all the animations, all the movement, the arms, the legs, everything. But there's some jiggly bits that are very, very difficult to make by hand. So for those, we have a plugin that handles the jiggle bones, and Blue has jiggle bones on his horns. The weapon has jiggle physics on the flails. and many other enemies have the jiggle physics enabled, and yeah, this helps a lot with the feeling, and that's why we chose to use the jiggle physics.
There's this enemy we call the Buttercup, which is like the lizard on 2 feet with a big head. And the head and the arms are completely managed by a procedural script, which is like moving the bones around. And that's what gives many things a feeling of wiggliness. And that's on the like some of the game field part, and there's the implementation part, which is also like most animations, as you mentioned, you focused a lot of Blua. Most of the things that happen on the character were made to be to mesh, to transition in as smoothly as possible, and tested. This was something that we bounced a lot with the game designer, with the lead artist, with the 3D artist guys, which was I don't like it. It's not meshing right. It's not feeling right. It's not powerful enough. It's not smooth enough. So it was like bounced a lot of times until we got to the point that everyone agreed we liked the final look. Yeah, and also there is a thing that the moment the characters turn into the slime form or the jelly form, which is that's a bone. There's a chain bone simulation where we only move the head and the rest just trails around, and that's going to be that's currently the solution we went for, but it's going to be replaced by a particle system, which is being worked on by Kubo.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. Oh, that's exciting. That's really exciting. I think the last thing that I've got on my kind of notes and stuff is kind of the main reason that everyone plays a roguelike, and that would be the combat.
Oh.
Can you kind of, because the combat is really cool, it's really quick, it's really, really well spaced out and really well paced. Can you just kind of talk to us about kind of like where the kind of idea for the combat system came from, how kind of you settled on the moves and stuff for the different characters, and this is if you're allowed to tell us a little bit more about what we can expect from the other jellies that are going to become available when the game launches.
Well, I don't have much information on that. I think Miguel is well versed on that because he programmed the combat basically.
Well, I can tell you the process that brought us to the point it is right now, which is the game designer kind of make his original proposal. I want to make this a fast-paced, very immediate game with a lot of feedbacks, like when you get attacked, when you attack, when you skip, when you miss, or when you hit, when you like. I want to focus on a very immediate gameplay that gives a lot of feedback to the player. And then we looked for a lot of references. We were looking at Devil May Cry, Hades, what other? We looked at even Street Fighter and Smash Bros. We looked at a lot of combat systems and the way they managed mainly time animations, hitboxes, and like small things like deflections or immunity time, shields, and all these little some details that are not really taken by the player in an objective sense. Like you're not playing the game. Oh, right, that's the size of my hitbox, but there are things that you feel. So we built the combat system on a very concrete set of rules. Like so we need to set the duration of every attack on frames. Like frames will be, every attack is divided on certain frames. Contact can only occur during these frames. Transitions can only occur during these frames. Attacks can be stopped and changed only during these frames.
Yeah.
So those are all the rules that we needed to set at the beginning, and they needed to be set in a flexible way so they could be like tuned later on. Like people could be testing, oh, this attack is too slow, this attack is not, that doesn't have the impact. So we need to be able to change all of those like small variables. And but mainly that's it. That's we looked for references to build the system upon, and crafted a system that could be that could manage a lot of specifics and giving feedback and giving the player a fair sense of time and action, and build it upon build everything visual upon it.
That's amazing and really, really cool as well. Because like the combat is really fun. Honestly, anyone who's watching this who hasn't been able to get, you know, a hold of the prototype, you're gonna have to find some way to play that because it is just brilliant. Last one before we wrap up, and I ask this to every indie developer, and they always kind of look at me like, "Oh, what can I tell you? What can't I tell you?" What is next for I'm Not Jelly? What can you tell us about what's coming next? Because obviously you've got a Kickstarter campaign, which is, let me just bring that up. You've got a Kickstarter campaign that's going through till mid-November. And then what is the plan after that?
Oh, it depends on how well we do on the campaign, because we have very, very ambitious goals for the project. But we have to also eat. So we have to take that into account. So depending on how well that does is how far we can take the project. And for now, our immediate goals are to polish the prototype even more, so it feels even better. And people have been giving us feedback, and we're working on implementing that feedback onto the prototype, so that people are happy with that. And yeah, well, that's the most immediate part on Prime Jelly, and well, the future is. It depends, basically.
On that note, there's pretty much the Kickstarter campaign is a bet on how crazy we can dream to go right now. Like, if it gets a lot of funding, like we can implement a lot of ideas. But like this is something that we have discussed with the game designer, which is like the scope must be met with the budget, and like there's a lot of things going on in the background with the studio. Like we're not currently allowed to make some announcements because they are not officially out there. Yep. But there has been some approval of the project from like some contests and some companies like that have been looking at it. So the idea is it has to be done, and it will be done. But how much of the complete concept can be integrated is ultimately a matter of budget. That being said, the current step is we're polishing the prototype. We are working on documentation to start pre-production of the final project. And we are taking all of the feedback we can. So we improve upon the ideas we already have. Like a lot of the streamers and the people testing and friends and like your guys, all the feedback you give us is amazingly important, because it's the way we look at things in a way we have not yet.
It tends to happen with every project. You become so engrossed with what you've done that you tend to overlook stuff that other people that haven't had contact with the project yet they can find that easily.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, wow. I'm really, really excited for everything that comes next. And, hopefully when this comes out, well, obviously it's already come out because people will be watching it. It'll have a positive impact on your Kickstarter campaign, because I'm Not Jelly is available to be backed on Kickstarter this very moment. So if you're watching this, do go over there and do back this project, because it is absolutely heaps of fun. And there is a link in the description to the Steam page where you can go and request an access to the playtest as well, which is really cool, because then you get to experience this really awesome game and everything it's got to offer, and a little taster for what's to come. I just want to say a big thank you to both Miguel and Ricardo. Thank you very much,
sir.
It's been a pleasure having you on. And obviously, if you're watching this, please do like and subscribe and tickle that little notification bell icon so you get notified of all of the new content that comes out on Robot Republic. And also, please do head over to robotrepublic.com. The link is somewhere down there on the page somewhere, along with the Twitter thing for all the updates about all of our articles and podcasts and everything else. But guys, it has been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for coming on. And I will hopefully speak to you guys soon. See you later.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Bye.